Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Let me try that again. Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We got a lot to talk about this morning. We've got a lot of breaking news. We've got New York State issues, redistricting issues. We're also going to be talking with our good friends from STICA. It's India Day. Coming up tomorrow right here in Corning, Centerway Square. We've had them on the program at least 2 years now. I think 3, technically, with the way it hits. We haven't been on the air. I don't know. We've had them on a few times. But we've got a fun show in store for you this morning. So let's get right to it. We're going to start with viewer comments. These comments came in either after yesterday's program or right before today's program. First off, a viewer writes in, did I mention I love Judge Jeanine Pirro? No, you did not mention that, but thank you. Yeah, she's doing a fantastic job. I was lucky enough to have her on my radio program numerous times, and I know I've told this story before, but she's such a sweet lady. You may not always know it, but when I had the radio program in the Elmira Corning market, her mother was still alive, living in Elmira, because Judge Jeanine is from Elmira. And even though she was on the number 1 rated Fox all the time at that point, I don't know if she was on the 5, I can't remember the program she was on at the time. She was so excited to take down all the information so her mother could listen to her on my radio program. I thought that was the sweetest thing. So Judge Jeanine, I'm in agreement with you. I love Judge Jeanine Pirro as well. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Franco. Hey, good morning, Mark. Trump calls for the United States Census that excludes illegal immigrants. I saw that. And the Air Force is going to deny early retirement pay for some transgender service members. And the White House says Trump is open to meet with Vladimir Putin without Zelensky. I have a few of those stories in our stack of paperwork here that we'll get to later on. So I appreciate that, Mark. Those are some of the major. There's a couple breaking stories that we'll add to that in just a moment. Comment from a different viewer. The people attacking Sheriff Allard know they will lose the appeal. This is designed to break him. How do we help? Thank you. Well, as he said yesterday during the interview, and if you missed the interview, it's really taking off online because if you haven't been tuning in this week, we broke the news that the county has officially filed an appeal on that case, a completely vindicated Sheriff Allard. It's a major, arguably the biggest major local story going. And he said during the interview to help, call your legislator or legislatures. Call them, let them know your dissatisfaction with their decision. Now, it's a little confusing because, and I had some people ask me this after the program. Yes, the legislature in a very close margin voted not to appeal. So that's why we thought this was all said and done. And that's why we're trying to get the information of why did they vote not to appeal and yet it's being appealed. We know that it's right around $250,000 it's cost taxpayers already. Where does it go from here? That's as of $250,000 as of the day before the appeal. Now how much are we going to be up to when this is all said and done? And in a case it looks like it'll be, I don't see any scenario after reading the 31 pages of the appeal that it's no different than before. I don't see where this is headed, if it's just a pettiness, if it is just one or two people angry at the sheriff because the sheriff had the audacity to push back against the all-powerful legislature. I don't have the answer. You do. Send it in. But if you missed that interview, it was a great interview. It was an exclusive here to Frankly Speaking. You can find it numerous places. One place is our YouTube page, WYDC TV YouTube page. Also the WYDC TV website. We have it there, wydctv.com. If you want me to send it to you, text that number on the bottom of the screen. I'll send you the link because if you missed it, you missed a great one. And another viewer wrote in regards to that interview saying, Frank, good morning. Well, good morning to you too. So as a follow-up to the sheriff's interview, I've had the opportunity over my career to work with many of the sheriffs in this county, and we have been fortunate to have many good people leading this organization. But there has never been one better than our current sheriff, Jim Allard. I have personally witnessed his professionalism, his discipline, his caring, his steadiness under extreme pressure, and his willingness to help everyone, no matter who. We are extremely fortunate that he has blessed us with his taking on this sometimes monumental task. You can see his leadership through the ranks of his department. He runs a tight ship because he has to, but his personnel would walk off a cliff for him because they know he has their back. Those legislators and county personnel that are driving this witch hunt with my tax dollars, by the way, should be ashamed of themselves and be replaced. We deserve better. I know Sheriff Allard does. Send the list of these idiots to Texas. I hear they're looking to replace some representatives that act like ours. Good point. And they can have them. We don't want them anymore. Thanks for listening. No, thank you for writing in. I couldn't agree more. It is frustrating. They're using our tax dollars as some type of vendetta piggy bank. And there's a reason why so many people are outraged. So many people are talking about this, why the YouTube video has received so many views, and why our good friends at the Hornell Sun, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, did a great write-up on the interview and was kind enough to share the YouTube video in that. If you don't go to the Hornell Sun, I highly recommend that you do. It's kind of an aggregate. Is that the right word? Aggregate? It covers everything. I know you're saying, well, I'm not in Hornell. Not all of you are saying that. Some of you aren't saying that. But those of you who are in Hornell, it does give you an opportunity to see other news. I've learned stuff very local in our area that you can't find anywhere else at a time when it's very tough to find local activities, local events that are happening. So kudos to the Hornell Sun for the job that they're doing. Okay, thank you for all those comments. Now let's get to some breaking stories from overnight. This will come as no surprise. I feel like deja vu all over again, right? As the great Yogi Berra once said. Federal judge has ordered construction pause at Alligator Alcatraz. So the construction that was aimed at expanding Florida's remote migrant detention facility, dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, must stop for at least 14 days. A rogue federal judge has ruled on Thursday. Judge Kathleen Williams, an appointee of former President Barack Obama, ordered the construction pause in response to a lawsuit filed by several environmental groups arguing that federal agencies did not assess the potential impacts the facility may have on the wetlands and endangered species in the Florida Everglades. The facility can continue to operate and hold ICE detainees, but new filling, paving, or infrastructure may not be added for the next 2 weeks, Williams said during the hearing. Quote, today's ruling by an activist judge will have no impact on immigration enforcement in Florida, said a spokesperson for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Alligator Alcatraz will remain operational, continue to serve as a force multiplier to enhance deportation efforts. DeSantis also noted in an X post that operations at Alligator Alcatraz are ongoing and deportations are continuing despite the order. Now, if you're not aware, Alligator Alcatraz has the capacity for 2,000 detainees, but will eventually hold 4,000, according to the Florida Division of Emergency Management. It was built in 8 days on 30 square miles of land deep in the Florida Everglades, opened last month after DeSantis used his emergency powers to order its construction. It is outfitted with tent structures to house the illegal migrants and was built on the site of an old airport owned by Miami-Dade County. So now these environmental groups have asked Williams, the judge, to issue a preliminary injunction larger in scope than she actually ended up ordering. They wanted operations at the facility halted as well, claiming the facility threatened billions of dollars worth of environmental restoration work done in the area. The plaintiffs argue that the construction of the facility violated the National Environmental Policy Act, which requires federal agencies to assess the environmental impacts of major construction projects. So there you are. Paul Schweip, the lead lawyer for the plaintiffs, said it is a temporary but appropriate pause on any further destruction of a sensitive area to allow the parties to present their evidence and arguments on the preliminary injunction request. Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told the New York Post that the lawsuit ignores the fact that this land has already been developed for a decade. It is another attempt to prevent the president from fulfilling the American people's mandate for mass deportation. These environmental activists and activist judges don't care about the invasion of our country facilitated by the Biden administration, but the American people do. So again, this coming in somewhat late yesterday. A federal judge ordering the construction pause, Judge Kathleen Williams, an appointee of former President Barack Obama, a pause in construction at Alligator Alcatraz. Also, yesterday, this is what's amazing about the Trump news cycle. Some of these things get glanced over, and if you blink, you missed it, right? Well, the Trump administration announced $50 million reward, a $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. So I'm bringing this to you that if you know the whereabouts of Nicolas Maduro, you could have $50 million coming to you. And I know we have quite a reach here. So I'm just looking out for you. And don't forget the 10% finder's fee as I bring this to your attention. Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations like Trade de Aruga, Sinaloa, and Cartel of the Suns to bring deadly drugs and violence into our country, said Pam Bondi. The Drug Enforcement Administration has thus far seized 30 tons of cocaine linked to Maduro and his associates, and nearly 7 tons linked to Maduro himself, which represents a primary source of income for the deadly cartels based in Venezuela and Mexico. The Attorney General noted that cocaine linked to Maduro's smuggling scheme, quote, is often laced with fentanyl and has resulted in loss and destruction of countless American lives. In March of 2020, Maduro, who's 62, was hit with a slew of federal charges in the Southern District of New York related to his drug trafficking efforts, including narco-terrorism, conspiracy to import cocaine, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices. Following the indictment, President Trump's first-term administration had initially offered a $15 million reward. Biden upped it to $25 million, and now we're at $50 million. The DOJ has seized over $700 million of Maduro-linked assets, including 2 private jets, 9 vehicles, and more. Yet Maduro's reign of terrorism continues, Bondi said. He is one of the largest narco-traffickers in the world and a threat to our national security. So if you have any information related to Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, I'd say this is the perfect time to let them know, because you could have gotten 15, then 25. Now it's at $50 million. So that broke yesterday. We've got my paperwork all out of control this morning. We're going to take a quick break because we're already running a little bit late to kick off the program. And we have a lot of updates this morning that I want to get to you. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. Major story coming in last night, or actually early this morning. Israel's Security Cabinet approved a plan to occupy Gaza City, marking an escalation in Israel's ongoing war against Hamas. The announcement comes after an all-night meeting of the Security Cabinet following Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's announcement that Israel planned to retake control of the entire territory and eventually hand it off to friendly Arab forces opposed to Hamas. Quote, the Security Cabinet has approved the Prime Minister's proposal for defeating Hamas. The IDF will prepare for taking control of Gaza City while distributing humanitarian assistance to the civilian population outside the combat zone. The office said the Security Cabinet had adopted by vote 5 principles for concluding the war, which included the disarming of Hamas, the return of all hostages, living and deceased, the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, Israeli security control in the Gaza Strip, and the establishment of an alternative civil administration that is neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. The Prime Minister's office said a decisive majority of Security Cabinet ministers believed that the alternative plan that had been submitted to the Security Cabinet would neither achieve the defeat of Hamas nor the return of the hostages. Asked in an interview with Fox News ahead of the meeting, Netanyahu said that Israel would take control of all of Gaza. We intend to, in order to assure our security, remove Hamas there, enable the population to be free of Gaza. We don't want to keep it. We want to have a security parameter. We want to hand it over to Arab forces that will govern it properly without threatening us and giving Gazans a good life. Now, we've talked about the recent protests of Israel and the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-American protests that have been happening on college campuses. We talk about a lot, and we see a mayor or mayoral candidate, I should say, in New York City that has sided with the anti-Semitic protesters. We have maybe some updates on that a little bit later on if we can get to it. I don't like focusing too much on the mayoral race in New York City, but it does have huge implications for the Democrat Party as a whole and for things like the gubernatorial race in New York. So it's got nationwide impact, but also statewide impact because the Democrat Party seems to be leaning more towards the socialist side of things that have also been siding with the anti-Semitic protesters. So it's something that we have to keep in mind. But people will say, how did this happen? And we had that great piece the other day about the teachers union and their radical embrace of anti-Semitism and how the young people that have graduated college after being indoctrinated by their professors in this anti-Semitism then go and teach these beliefs to the younger generations. And to show that it's not just bluster that we're talking about here, in Baltimore City Public Schools are now the subject of a federal probe following a complaint alleging erroneous and persistent discrimination with one still employed teacher. We know how difficult it is to get a teacher unemployed. The one still employed teacher accused of threatening to, quote, go all Nazi, end quote, on a Jewish student and another classmate and other classmates, saying, quote, all Jews should die, end quote. That is what this teacher has alleged to have said. President Trump's education department launched the Title VI investigation after receiving evidence that Charm City schools tolerated pervasive harassment of Jewish students in violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which just sounds very reminiscent of the students in colleges, the Jewish students in colleges being harassed, intimidated by fellow students, but also we talk about the faculty that are involved in this. The same teacher who made the go all Nazi threat also personally directed Nazi salutes towards a Jewish student, according to the complaint filed at the department's Office of Civil Rights. A subsequent investigation confirmed the incident occurred. That is, the Baltimore City Public Schools did an independent investigation and found that this did occur, and yet this teacher is still employed. And I should add, no disciplinary action was taken against the teacher, again, I want to reiterate, who is still employed by the city. So the school district found that that teacher had said those horrible things, had intimidated Jewish students, and nothing was done. Students also tormented their Jewish peers by exclaiming that 6 million was not enough. That's an exact quote in reference to the Holocaust, and scrawling Nazi graffiti on desks and in textbooks. Nazi salutes were also performed on the playground. Think of the age groups, folks. While other students allegedly taunted Jewish classmates by saying, we should call Hamas and have them come here, end quote. The incident left Jewish students afraid to walk down the hallways alone and unable to focus on schoolwork, according to the Education Department. Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Craig Tranner, said in a statement, the allegations that Baltimore City Public Schools tolerate virulent Nazi-inspired anti-Semitic harassment of its Jewish students is at once appalling and infuriating. When a teacher allegedly directs a Nazi salute towards a Jewish student or non-Jewish students harassing their Jewish contemporaries by saying all Jews should die, we're not simply talking about contemptible bullying. We're talking about a shocking abdication of educator responsibility that constitutes unlawful anti-Semitic harassment under Title VI. If true, these allegations confirm a disturbing trend. Too many of our nation's education institutions are failing American students in their loathing for their own country and fellow citizens, and a tolerance and acceptance for a deeply destructive ancient hatred. The Trump-McMahon Education Department's Office for Civil Rights will vigorously investigate this matter and ensure American Jewish students can learn and flourish in an environment free from unlawful discrimination. Now, if you want to talk about the Baltimore public school system, they made embarrassing headlines last month when a July 22nd Board of School Commissioners meeting was hijacked and pornographic videos that featured swastikas and anti-Semitic slurs were played during the public comment portion of the proceeding. A spokesman said in a statement that Baltimore City Public Schools, city schools, is committed to fostering a culture of tolerance, respect, and civility. Bullying and harassment have no place in our schools, and we unequivocally reject anti-Semitism and hate in any form, a spokesman said in a statement. City School stands in solidarity with our Jewish community and with all who seek to create safe, inclusive, and respectful learning environments. We have condemned hateful behavior and taken action to hold students and staff accountable when our values and policies are violated. Yet that teacher, even though they looked into it at the Baltimore City Public Schools, looked into it themselves and found that these incidents did occur, that teacher is still very much employed by Baltimore City Public Schools. So that's kind of your answer as to why this anti-Semitism has run amok. It starts not just at the college campus, it starts well before. And as those kids get out of college to come back into the teaching profession, they have been indoctrinated in a way to push this anti-Semitic message. It's frustrating, but I wanted to bring it to you. It's heartbreaking for those Jewish students that have to put up with this day in and the day out. You know, at a time when not that long ago we were lectured all the time about bullying in schools, and I think it is a very real threat, especially with online bullying. Don't get me wrong, but now we have kids that are being severely bullied because of their religion, and many of the quote-unquote grown-ups in the room are turning a blind eye. By the way, speaking of turning a blind eye, we mentioned yesterday it's not just, unfortunately, a Washington, D.C. issue. It's a New York issue as well because of Raise the Age. The crime on the street caused by young people, because there are no penalties for young people under the age of 18. No real penalties. They go to family court, as Judge Janine, who that viewer said they loved. Judge Janine saying basically put them in arts and crafts camp instead of punishing them. Well, Trump is now putting more federal law enforcement on the streets of the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. That'll begin today to crack down on violence committed by gangs of roaming youths. D.C. residents can expect to see an increase in federal enforcement starting as early as tomorrow. It was released in a statement yesterday. The operational details are still being finalized. The move comes after a well-known former DOJ staffer, Edward Korstein, was attacked by teenagers as he intervened to thwart an attempted carjacking near DuPont Circle, about a mile north of the White House. Korstein, 19, was beaten up and bloodied by about 10 juveniles at approximately 3 a.m. on Sunday. A picture of the injured staffer was posted by Trump and Korstein's former supervisor, Elon Musk. National Guard vehicles were spotted outside the D.C. Armory Thursday morning in apparent preparation for Trump's announcement. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security are also preparing to deploy personnel. Quote, Washington, D.C. is an amazing city, but has sadly been plagued by petty and violent crime for far too long, said Carolyn Levitt. President Trump is committed to making our nation's capital safer and even more beautiful for its residents, lawmakers, and visitors from around the world. The expected order follows Trump's Making the District of Columbia Safe and Beautiful executive order signed on March the 28th. So that's an update from yesterday's program. I got a couple other updates from yesterday's program as well, but we are running a little bit late, so stay with us. We'll be right back on this Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. And here we go. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer saying, I said it before and I will say it again. Jesus was a Jew. This fact begs the question, are these bigots also anti-Christianity? Great question. And another question is, why is this so-called teacher still employed and working with young children? That's the million-dollar question. The Baltimore School District looked into the incident, found it did occur, the incidents, found out they did occur, and he or she, it didn't say, still very much employed. So the next question, I may have missed it, but what is the teaching bigot's name? Did not mention name. It is still, I guess, under investigation, but the article itself did not mention a name. I will give you any updates that I have on that, but it's just painting a larger picture, folks, of what we're dealing with. I had to mention this. I'm not going to say it's old news. It came out yesterday. It's not necessarily breaking news, but Jasmine Crockett, who we've talked about on this program a lot. She's a rising star in the Democrat Party. She says some horrible, horrible things. She's one of the faces of the resistance in the Democrat Party. She uses foul language. She edges on the line of pushing for violence. She called Governor Greg Abbott from Texas, who is in a wheelchair, Governor Hot Wheels. Well, we're learning what is going on behind the scenes at her office. The New York Post talked with an anonymous congressional aide for Jasmine Crockett. The liberal loudmouth has rocketed to fame since taking office back in January of 2023. But three sources, okay? This is not one of these hit pieces at the New York Times or elsewhere where they have one anonymous source. Three sources who have worked with or for Crockett says she's rarely present when TV cameras aren't rolling and terrorizes staff when she does appear. Crockett is not often found at her government-provided suite in the Longworth House office building, with one insider saying she prefers to work from her nearby luxury apartment building, sometimes for weeks on end. She is laying around her apartment, won't come into the office, and is really just indifferent to staff and will scream at them. She is never in the office and is very disengaged. She does her, we'll say, baloney that goes viral and then freaks out over the most random things. A second source close to Crockett's team added, it is widely known that she's not nice to staff and is just not a really dedicated member focused on constituents. She is focused almost exclusively on being an influencer, meaning a social media influencer, not a member of Congress. They described her as all diva, no wow. When Crockett does show up for work, often to attend a committee hearing, she deploys a made-for-social media attack on Trump. She prefers to have a staff member drive her the short distance to her office in a rented car rather than her staffer's own, cheaper option commonly used by lawmakers. The staffer is expected to stand outside the vehicle, which has to be an Escalade or similar upscale make, and open the door for her. You're technically allowed to do this, but it's wildly inefficient. Instead of using the scheduler's car, she rents a car every week in D.C. She expects her staff to drive her around while she's in the back seat, calling it a power play akin to threatening the staffer like an Uber, or treating the staffer like an Uber driver. I'm not going to go through some of the things that she said in the past, some of the nasty language that she's used to staffers. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I can't even repeat the word she called one of her gay staff members. Wow. 3, Crockett also burned through employees at such a pace that she's becoming known as the present-day version of the late Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, long known as the Capitol's toughest boss. A number of staff have become fed up with their treatment, while others have either been fired or left on their own, a distinction often difficult to discern in Washington. Some former aides cited fear of retribution when declining to participate in the story. Quote, she thinks she's her own best advisor. She knows best and has this toxic staff environment. She gets rid of press people because she's like, I do all the press stuff. On one occasion, described to the Post, Crockett reduced a legislative aide to tears, bellowing, do you really want me to be here? And if not, you can leave. Another aide, a young black woman, was fired abruptly and confined to a colleague. I don't want to hear Jasmine Crockett talk about helping black women when she just fired me for no reason. Capitol Hill jobs often are filled based on personal connections and openings that are circulated among friend groups. A source told the Post that a job listing for Crockett's team recently was shared among a large group of black Democratic women, but nobody expressed interest in the gig. Quote, you would think working for a black woman, if you were a young black woman or a young person of color, you would feel empowered in that space. But truly, the only person that she thinks about and cares about is herself. The staff is really just an island unto itself because she doesn't care about the local issues happening in her district. She's more focused on get me on The View, get me on the late night talk shows. A lot of congressional hearings are the most boring, basic stuff. So how is it at every hearing, it's about Trump? It's about Trump again and again and again. It's like she's not actually doing any real work. She's at a hearing. We can be talking about the budget and can be talking about appropriations, and she brings it back to Trump every time. She causes some kind of tension and issue. The hearing has to stop. The chairman has to bang the gavel. It's like a spectacle and a show. Not everything has to be clipped for MSNBC. Crockett has also cycled through several chiefs of staff, with one observer saying it's because they want her to do her job, and the actual job of a member of Congress isn't fun and glamorous. So unless you are somebody willing to say yes to all the outrageous things she would like to do, you're not going to last long. Crockett hasn't been coy about her treatment of staff, recently offering 2 examples of rough treatment of subordinates in an interview with Atlantic Magazine. So when she's doing Atlantic Magazine, she actually looks at this as a badge of honor, treating her staff unfairly, rudely. Behind the scenes, the representative speaks casually. She can also, it says, during our interview at the Waldorf, she dialed up a staffer in D.C. in front of me and scolded him for an unclear note on her schedule. Another time in the car, after an aide brought Crockett a paper bag full of food from a fundraiser, she peered inside, scrunched her nose, and said, "This looks like garbage." Anyway, and this is maybe one of the reasons why when she heard at the Atlantic that they had asked some of her colleagues what they thought of her, she wanted to shut down the article, saying, I'm not going to give you the right to publish that article, which, by the way, she has no power to do. Going to show you the arrogance and the ignorance at the same time. So she wanted to censor that article because she thought maybe some of those people would tell the truth about her. All right. I had to give you that because we've talked so much about Jasmine Crockett. Oh, you know the word. I don't know. Is that I see what you're saying. I don't think you can in that context. The word that she called her, gay staffer. I know I'd rather err on the side of caution. You can find the article yourself at the New York Post. But see, our viewers are one step ahead of me. They've already read that piece. We've got one other update on the media. I feel like all my paperwork's out of order this morning. But then we're going to get to New York State issues. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Look at that beautiful view of Corning. Contact Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Two quick things about the media. You may have heard that Trump has started I guess you would call a group to look at Los Angeles getting the 2028 Olympics. Well, Los Angeles Times columnist has urged the city of LA to abandon the 2028 Olympics project over concerns about President Trump's involvement. So never mind what that would do for LA's economy, never mind what it would do for its status. Trump's involved, so we don't want it. Does this give you an inside look at one reason why print media is struggling so much? We know the New York Post recently is going to expand to California. That's an exception. They offer difference from bias like this. But in a new column for the outlet, Gustavo Arellano lamented that Trump will be heading the task force in charge of the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles and warned the president would use the spectacle and the city for his own agenda. Quote, "That's why LA needs to withdraw from hosting the Olympics. The sooner, the better." He said that when Los Angeles 2028, the group that tasked with organizing the Olympics in the city, Chair Casey Wasserman announced Trump as head of the task force, it was like him offering the city a giant whoopee cushion. And again, the media wonders why they struggle when they lose all credibility with their extreme bias. The columnist went on to trash other top officials from the Trump administration who were present on the announcement. Quote, "On Trump's right was a rash of LA haters, some of whom played a prominent role in Southern California's summer of deportations, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Department of Homeland Security head Kristi Noem. Not present, but hailed by Trump during the presser as an MVP candidate, was Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, who has made it his life's mission to crush the multicultural metropolis that birthed him." His praise for Trump, Wasserman's praise for Trump was, according to Arellano, nothing short of groveling. "I haven't seen such a suck-up since the last time I vacuumed my dad's pool. And you definitely don't entrust Kiss you-know-what like Wasserman. I'm still not sure what he did to deserve his powerful LA 28 gig, except being the grandson of the late Hollywood mogul Lou Wasserman, with calming down someone like Trump." He also noted how the federal government was always going to be involved in hosting the Olympic Games, but said that the fact that Trump is part of it makes it problematic. Quote, the federal government was always going to play a role in providing security for the 2028 Olympics, just as it has for previous games in the U.S. But Trump, as the head of the task force, now gets to personally oversee our own siege. With the games happening in a presidential election year, Trump would love nothing more than to traipse around in L.A. radically transformed by his deportation blitzkrieg to proclaim his mission accomplished and broadcast his conquest to the world. He also warned that Trump would use the next 3 years of Olympics prep to humiliate blue LA at every chance. All right, that's what he thinks. We can't have the Olympics in LA, even though that would benefit LA tremendously because Trump is involved. And how about this, just for a headline, before we go to New York? Tariff rebate checks may sound awesome, but they could be quite dangerous. I mean, is hyperbole the right word? Just awkwardness? Matt Egan from CNN wrote that headline. Let me try it again. Tariff rebate checks may sound awesome. Yes, awesome in a headline. But they could be quite dangerous. Ooh. Now, I know on this program we've talked about, I don't want to go too much into it, the nitty-gritty of his piece. We've talked about it. Many people on this program have said they want the money used from tariffs to actually go to paying down the national debt and not wanting a rebate check for themselves. But Trump has said we're taking in so much money that we may very well make a dividend to the people of America. Although discussions on rebate checks are preliminary and nothing is imminent, it's easy to see how this idea could become quite popular among voters. After all, who doesn't like getting a check from Uncle Sam? But Stephanie Roth said doing stimulus checks might fuel inflation at a point where tariffs are already inflationary. This just risks making the problem worse. It could become quite dangerous. All right. There we go. Saying, never mind LA. Move the Olympics to Corning. I agree. That would be the place for it. I agree with that, viewer. Thank you. All right, before we go to a break, we're going to dive into, it's really New York State issues, but it starts with the whole redistricting in Texas and redistricting conversation in general. We're going to talk about that after this. I wanted to end this break on a good note. That was three waves right there, folks. That's a good one. Steuben County Department of Public Works has honored 42 snowplow drivers for their perfect 2024-2025 winter call-out response. Impressive. So the Steuben County Department of Public Works recognizing those 42 snowplow operators with a 100% call-out response rate. Throughout one of the most demanding snow seasons in recent memory, these 42 individuals respond to every single call to action, regardless of the hour, weather severity, or road conditions. Their perfect attendance reflects an exceptional level of dedication, grit, and professionalism in public service. Snowplow drivers report in the dead of night, during holidays, and in some of the harshest weather conditions, not for accolades, but out of deep sense of duty to keep Steuben County residents safe. Oh, that was great. Kudos to them, to the 42. Congratulations for getting a well-deserved pat on the back. All right, a couple quick announcements before we go to break. Don't forget, number one, Ross Chastain's going to be at the Corning Moose Lodge. That's a really cool get. Congratulations to the Moose. That's on Victory Highway and Painted Post. That is going to be tomorrow from 6:30 till 7 p.m. So don't forget to bring your cell phones, your cameras, however you want to take a picture, something to get autographed. There will be food available for purchase, and the Moose Lodge has amazing food. So I wanted to pass that along to you. Mark your calendars. Don't forget. I know I'm in the background there. Sorry. Moving around. Also, we want to highlight another event coming up on Saturday, which is India Day. You can do both. That's what's nice. You can do both. But India Day is coming up tomorrow, starting at 3 p.m. right here in Corning Centerway Square. And we're going to have guests from STICA, which stands for Southern Tier India Cultural Association. We're going to have guests on in the 7 o'clock hour. But right now, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. I also wanted to mention, if you do go to the Corning Moose Lodge to meet Ross Chastain, and then you don't mind if you're not a overly private person, send in the pictures that you get with them. I'd love to post them on Monday's show. But if you don't want to, I understand as well, if you're a very private person. But if you don't mind a picture of you and Ross Chastain, send it in. We'll put them up on the screen on Monday's show. That'd be a lot of fun. Okay. Senator John Cornyn, Republican from Texas, says FBI Director Kash Patel has approved his request to help state and local law enforcement locate Texas Democrats who have fled the Lone Star State in hopes of stalling a partisan redistricting effort. Cornyn wrote, I am proud to announce that Director Kash Patel has approved my request for the FBI to assist state and local law enforcement in locating runaway Texas House Democrats. I thank President Trump and Director Patel for supporting and swiftly acting on my call for the federal government to hold these supposed lawmakers accountable for fleeing Texas. Cornyn asked Patel in an August 5th letter for the FBI to take any appropriate steps to aid in Texas state law enforcement efforts to locate or arrest potential lawbreakers who have fled the state to stop a Republican-led district effort from moving forward. So that is where we're at this morning. Now, Governor Hochul, tough-talking Rambo Hochul, who is loving the spotlight that she is being given because she's talking tough. She's going to redistrict. And there has been a few snags in that, which we're going to talk about probably at the top of the hour. But in reference to that specifically, essentially using law enforcement to bring back the fleeing Democrats, Governor Hochul was on MSNBC's The Weeknight. She said that everyone should stand up and not let the FBI, quote, hunt down the 50 Texas Democrat legislators who left the state. I've got to say, and there's a piece that we're going to get to in the next hour, asking, and it wasn't from a conservative outlet, asking Governor Hochul to kind of calm down with the war language, the kind of the violent rhetoric that she's been using. In this case, hunt down, fire with fire. You've got all's fair in love and war, suggesting this is a war. Again, you've heard me say it a million times, she doesn't do that great of a job on the spot. We have that again. Co-host Alicia Menendez said, just to underscore something Michael said, there's no federal crime that all of a sudden these agents are getting involved in. Let's say, though, it puts you on a collision course with the FBI. What do you do then? Hochul said, first of all, I have a lot of respect for the FBI, but I guarantee there are far more important pursuits that they should be engaging in, like human trafficking, breaking up drug cartels, and stopping terrorist attacks here in New York City. So I think this is an abuse of power of the FBI to direct them to go after duly elected officials in the United States of America. If we fall in that far, that makes our fight even more important. I think that's a typo. That all people stand up and say, we're not going to let you take away our democracy, and you're not going to hunt down our elected officials. Well, she had other things to say on a program called The Weeknight on MSNBC. We're going to tell you that, some of the praise of her, some of the questioning of her, and some of the gerrymandering conversation just in general. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And what a perfect way to wrap up hour number one, and how quickly has hour number one all week. This show has went very fast, and we've had great guests, and that continues in the 7 o'clock hour with members of STICA. I never say it right. But India Day is coming up in Corning on Saturday. Okay, let's go to viewer comments. We got two. We got one from Ken and one from another viewer who says Hochul is a double talker. On one hand, she says that the FBI has other more important pursuits, but on the other hand, she sanctions sanctuary cities for criminals. Yes, and of course, her hypocrisy knows no bounds, saying that redistricting is essentially evil, and to fight that evil, we are going to redistrict. We're going to tell you more about Hochul and some other New York State issues outside of redistricting. But let's go to Ken's comment. Ken writes in, Frank, can you imagine the frustration of the Democratic Party? For 9 years, they have worked to destroy Donald Trump and minimize the voice of Republicans by Russia, multiple impeachments, organizing riots that destroy property and involve lost lives, calling the other side racist, Nazis, Hitler, misogynist, homophobes, deplorables, dictators, garbage, cult followers, and any other slanderous name they could think of. Colluding with the legacy media to push their message. NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, NPR, CNBC, and the AP, just to mention a few. With just Fox on the other side. Lawfare, incessant lies, and endless misinformation. Flooding the country with illegals to change the electorate. 2 assassination attempts. With all that and more that I can list here, but Frank, unfortunately, you only have a 2-hour show, the Dems still failed to keep Trump from being elected. And their tactics actually helped him win and help him get elected by a landslide. I agree with you on that. Very much so, Ken. I think that is something that's greatly overlooked. The constant attacks on Trump and what that did to people to overlook some of the things they might not have liked about Trump, to say, I'm not letting lawfare decide my vote for me. I'm not letting these lies, but I'll continue. I'm sorry to go on a tangent in the middle of your statement. While I don't like name calling, there is one name that comes to mind when describing the Democrat Party: insanity. It fits the Democrats perfectly when using Sigmund Freud's description of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. When will they learn that their tactics and pandering to special interests aren't resonating with the majority of Americans? They're clearly not going to learn. Who was it? Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd saying earlier this week that he's afraid that Democrats haven't lost enough to correct their course, to learn their lesson. Can you imagine that with a historic landslide in November? Now there's some that just put their head in the sand and say, well, it was just because it was a fluke. Kamala only had 107 days and it was Biden's fault. It's Biden's fault. There's some that should be doing some soul searching. And I do have some examples of that, of what some people in the Democrat Party are saying about their own party. But no, they haven't learned. You got Cory Booker turning on Democrats, trying to make a name for themselves. Everybody's just trying to run in front to be the face of the resistance, which is really no different than one of the things that caused them to lose the election, which is they had no real plans, no real answers for constituents and voters. It was all no Trump. We don't like Trump. Anti-Trump. But that's why they're using the name calling. They're trying this whole new tactic, all with the same underlining woke messages, underlining causes that people, the American voters, don't like. So, no, they haven't learned their lesson. That goes without saying. We know that. And it's evident in the people trying to race to the top of the resistance movement, like the Jasmine Crockett's that I brought up earlier, or the Cory Bookers, or even, in my opinion, Governor Hochul. Now, I don't know. Some people have disagreed with me, but I tend to lean towards at least Stefanik's view that Hochul may at least be considering a 2028 run. But having said that, we've got to wrap up hour number 1. I did want to mention, we're going to talk a couple Hornell things here in just a moment, but I did want to mention my good friend, our good friend, to frankly speaking, Mayor Buckley, John Buckley, has asked me to appear on his radio show again. This will be my 3rd time, I believe. It's a blast every time. If you haven't tuned into The Pulse with Mayor John Buckley, if you're in the Hornell area, it's on a great station, WLEA, and it's on at 1 o'clock Saturday, 1 o'clock Sunday, and we're going to have a nice conversation. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but every time we just have a lot of fun. So I really hope that you can tune in. If you can't tune in or you say, darn it, Frank, I don't live in Hornell, that's okay. You can find it at WLEA's website or their sister station, WYSL, out of Avon. And the good people that run those stations, they're just doing a fantastic job. So I'm so glad that the mayor has invited me on again, and I look forward to it. So again, if maybe you're on your way to the races, leaving Hornell around 1, tune in to The Pulse, either Saturday or Sunday at 1 or both times. Let's do it both times. It'll be the mayor and myself, and I love it, and I look forward to it. All right, there's our little self-promotion. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking with hour number 2 after this. It's hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting Live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to kick off this hour with a couple comments from viewers. We also have a lot of updates on redistricting in New York. This viewer says, Ken said a mouthful of truths. Sadly, he's correct on everything. What has happened to the Democrat Party? No solid direction, just shock and awe wokeness. I like that. Shock and awe wokeness. Yes, it's just said in a different way, essentially, so far. Coming from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I would love to see the tariff money go first to repaying the Social Security system. Oh, that's interesting. And keeping it solid forever. Thank you very much. That's a good point. Okay, so back to redistricting. Governor Hochul. Oh, and just to recap, we are going to hear from STICA a little bit later on, talk about India Day. Governor Kathy Hochul, again, was on MSNBC's The Weeknight. And she said, history will judge us how we respond to this moment. Because if we allow Republicans to get away with what they're attempting to do, this legal insurrection, she keeps using that term. Someone told her that was clever. The legal insurrection of our U.S. Capitol, then we'll have a generation of redistricted gerrymandering seats that are skewed against Democrats. This coming from a woman who the lines were so gerrymandered in New York, it was thrown out of court twice. I mean, these states that are screaming the loudest are the most known for gerrymandering, such as Illinois. And Stephen Colbert showing the governor there, but not doing it in ironic fashion, showing him some of the ways those districts have been drawn. Now, Pritzker, who wants to run in 2028, thinks that, or try to present it as, yep, that's how fair we were. They are the state known for gerrymandering, amongst many other Democrat-run states. But I'll continue with what Hochul had to say. And when will we ever get the balance of power, at least in Washington? I served in Congress when the Republicans were in the majority in the House of Representatives. I lost that seat in the most Republican district in New York. I won that seat. At first, I lost it with redistricting. But guess what? I only lost by 1.5 points. But I refused to repeal the Affordable Care Act. So I know Republican districts very well, and they will stand up and fight back. Right now, Republicans in Republican districts are sick and tired of what's happening to them. Talk to the farmers in Elise Stefanik district in North Country. Talk to people in Mike Lawler's district in the Hudson Valley. Why? She was very nasty, too, when she was talking about Lawler the other day in a sarcastic way. I just don't understand this new Kathy Hochul. But you could tell she's scared of Stefanik, but why is she mentioning Mike Lawler? He said he's not going to run for governor, but I'll continue. People are going to be losing health care, child care. Talk to a mom or dad anywhere in America, and how are you doing? Getting ready to buy back-to-school clothes and backpacks and sneakers? When the sneakers you could have bought for $42 have gone up to $72, that's just in 3 months. That's what tariffs are doing, and it's starting already. So they're going to be wiped out. They know they're going to be wiped out in elections next year. That's Governor Hochul. Jimmy Vilkin from The Gothamist says, why Governor Hochul is throwing caution to the wind on redistricting. There's nothing Hochul can do to change New York's congressional district lines before next year's midterm. But there she was on MSNBC Monday, her second appearance in 4 days, saying she would use bare-knuckle tactics to counter Republican plans to redraw the maps in Texas to benefit their party. On Rachel Maddow's show, she said, if we refuse to fight for our democracy, then we're doomed to lose it. We don't want our democracy lost, and that's why I'm sick and tired of fighting these battles with my hands tied behind my back because we have an independent redistricting committee. It was another sign that the often cautious executive is adopting a more combative posture ahead of her re-election bid next year. Hochul isn't on anybody's list as a future White House contender, but she's leapt onto the national stage this week alongside Newsom and Pritzker. You may think that she's not on anybody's list. She may have put herself on that list. That's a clear distinction because remember, Cuomo had that same attitude before COVID hit. Even though he's polling at less than 1%, still seriously considering a run for president. So no, it may not be on your list or my list, but the list that matters about potential candidates for president is Hochul's list if she puts her name on that list. A professor of political science at Fordham University, Christina Greer, said it is in step with the voters on the left what they're seeking. A lot of Democrats are hoping that more Democrat governors, senators, and members of the House actually put their feet down and come to the fight with more than just quotes and words and hopes and feelings. This is particularly important for someone like Hochul, who sits in the centrist camp of the party. Harping on redistricting is one way for her to excite angry progressives without alienating moderates. Hochul continues to steer clear of more controversial policies like raising taxes and sanctuary protections for immigrants. Republicans in Albany still attacked. They said Hochul's statements this week show Democrats are hypocrites who should never be granted the moral high ground. Democrats, of course, have said the same thing about the GOP since the rise of Donald Trump. Matt Slaughter, a Republican from Westchester, said Kathy Hochul just told every New Yorker that she doesn't care what we think about the rule of law. She only cares about partisan politics. The Independent Redistricting Commission that Hochul seeks to disband was enacted in 2014. Reform groups and progressive Democrats pushed for years to depoliticize the redistricting process, saying fair lines would empower racial and ethnic minorities. New York's next plan, Redistricting 2032. Cesar Ruiz of the civil rights group Latino Justice said Hochul's comments were alarming. John Caney, executive director of the watchdog group Reinvent Albany, worried about where this redistricting arms race will end. How the Democrats save America by diminishing democracy in New York seems like a pretty fraught road to go down. Good point. Greer said she thought the backlash would be muted. What is a moderate? I mean, that gets you nothing because you'll be steamrolled by the agenda of the Republican Party right now. Ooh. But we know there's obstacles in this. She can say all the hyperbolic language that she wants on MSNBC. She's loving the attention. She loves being able to go on there and take a dig at Elise Stefanik, who she clearly is worried about. But at the end of the day, there's no way that this is going to be changed because of the state constitution. It's a time-consuming process, and it's not going to be done before the midterms next year. Queens State Senator Michael Gianaris said the soonest any of this could happen would be voter approval in November of 2027, which would allow us to intervene in the 28 congressional election cycle. But Hochul is still really kind of trying to, like Democrats normally do, mislead to rile up her constituents. So mislead as if she could do something. But Chris Churchill, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat this morning. I apologize. I've been fighting it all morning. But Chris Churchill writes, enough with the war talk, Governor. The Texas Democrats who fled Austin to block a vote on their state's plan to redraw congressional districts made unfortunate travel choices. If the goal was to protest partisan cheating, that is. One group, for example, journeyed to Illinois, home to some of the nation's most gerrymandered districts, including two shaped like lightning bolts. As the Wall Street Journal noted, 14 of the state's 17 congressional districts are held by Democrats, despite the party winning just 53% of the 2024 congressional vote. Think of that. 14 of the state's 17 congressional districts are held by Democrats in Illinois, despite the party winning just 53% of the 2024 congressional vote. As you may have heard, another batch of Texans came to Albany. Alas, that's the very place where New York Democrats tried their best to cheat, but had their erroneously gerrymandered districts thrown out by courts, leading to an embarrassing and drawn-out saga that ended with an independent special master having to draw the maps. If the Texans' point is that the actions of their state Republicans are wrong and bad for democracy, which they undeniably are, wouldn't it have been better to visit one of the many states that drew congressional districts the honest way? Here in New York, Democrats are eager to act as though their attempt at blatant gerrymandering never happened, as if they stood only on the highest moral ground. They're pretending they never do anything as naughty as what's happening in Texas, where at the urging of Trump, the GOP is attempting a rare mid-decade redistricting that might hand the party 5 more seats in Congress. It's very difficult to play fair when your opponents are playing dirty, Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie said, without giggling, as he and other New York Democrats hosted the traveling Texans. Yes, Trump and Texas Republicans are playing dirty in the middle of the game. But is it that much better to cheat at the start of the game, as Hastie and company did? Governor Kathy Hochul, meanwhile, resorted to militaristic rhetoric, unfortunate at a time when some wackadoodle might take her metaphor literally. Yes, and that's the problem with this violent rhetoric that the Democrats are pushing. The Jasmine Crockett's, the Governor Hochul, so many others. Because let's face it, as Ken had mentioned in his post, at least 2 assassination attempts on the President of the United States. But we see, and with this rise, I had that opinion piece, I think, last week, the rise of Luigiism, I think it was called, which is, what was his name? Luigi, I don't even know. Mangione, who shot that CEO. There's this, unfortunately, there's this violent extreme coming from the left. And using this kind of language is dangerous at the end of the day. so this is what she said. This is a war. We were at war, and that's why the gloves are off, asserting that New York will respond to the Texas effort with redistricting foolishness of its own. If there's a gerrymandering war between blue and red states, the casualties can only be voters. Districts drawn to ensure that one party wins effectively disenfranchise voters by depriving them of a real choice. Gerrymandering leads the public to conclude, reasonably, that the system is rigged and participation is for fools. That's why good government groups are against it. New York shouldn't try to race Texas to the bottom, said Rachel Foss, senior political advisor for Reinvent Albany, adding that gerrymandering in New York would put the Democrat Party ahead of voters. That's right, it's about them, not us. Despite her not on my watch swagger, Hochul will have to fight her declared war like a peacenik without weaponry. A mid-decade redistricting is illegal in New York, while state voters made their disdain for gerrymandering clear by approving a constitutional provision against districts drawn for partisan advantages. It was that language that led courts to rebuff those unfair districts drawn by New York Democrats. So the party is floating a complicated and energy-intensive process involving constitutional changes approved by voters that would allow for the redrawing of congressional districts by 2028 at the earliest. While Hochul suggested voters would be receptive to rewriting the rules, that's far from certain, and it's safe to assume that none of this gets off the ground. Which means the governor's bluster is performative silliness. It isn't really about what's happening in Texas or democracy. It's about next year's gubernatorial election. And I would add, I'm going to keep saying it, and maybe 2028. Rallying angry Democrats is a solid strategy for knocking back the primary challenge from Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, and running against Trump's malfeasance is a fine blueprint for defeating the expected candidacy from Republican Elise Stefanik. And what does the North Country Congresswoman say about all this? Quote, Kathy Hochul is hell-bent on angrily spitting the New York State Constitution, the will of the New York voters, good government groups, and the courts by dismantling fair and legal district lines. She said in a statement that mentioned New York's prior attempt to illegally draw gerrymandered lines and suppress the will of the voters. Hell-bent and angrily spitting might be overstating things. But Stefanik's statement is generally accurate, except for one heck of a glaring omission. She makes no mention of Trump's provoking of this mid-decade mess and offers not a peep of criticism for Texas Republicans seeking to eliminate voter choice. Well, rare is a politician willing to go against her side with an election looming, but I do wish the governor would quit the war talk and admit that a Texas-sized wrong isn't right for New York. So again, I thought that was worth mentioning with the rhetoric of Governor Hochul. We got a couple other things on this when we come back, and then the segment after that we'll be talking with STICA, so don't miss out on that. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Wow, I got so many comments coming in. I didn't have a chance to read them all because I went to get a cup of water. I'm going to risk it here. Okay. Not only Hochul, here's from a comment from a viewer. Not only Hochul, but all Democrats continue to display their hypocrisy over and over again. But I digress. My point is that once Trump brings back all the industries that used to be here, including farming and so on, that the high-taxing Democrats have chased out of our country, we will prosper with deflation. It'll take a bit of time for this to become reality, just like it took some time for inflation to run rampant. Thanks, Democrats. But deflation will become a reality within the next year or so. Thank you, Republicans. And thank you for your comment, viewer. Comment from a different viewer. I feel the Democrat Party is walking on a field of mud, trying to not leave any footprints. They need to get a leader like Roosevelt, Truman, or JFK to compete with Trump, preferably a leader not held in check by the globalists and other self-servers. Unfortunately, the huge, easy money flowing in from the wealthy are the ones pulling the strings of the party, and not easy to control. God save the Democrat Party to get back to their roots, where the party tries to be for the workers. Thank you very much. Nice comment. Ken writes in, all I can say is, wow. Hochul's handlers are trying to propagandize people into thinking the Republicans in New York are sick and tired of the Trump administration, instead of the truth, that they are getting more and more sick and tired of the Democrats crushing mandates from their New York supermajority, running the state into the ground. More confirmation that insanity fits perfectly. Thank you very much. Now, Democrat, listen to this, just to show you insanity. Democrat Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey. She wanted to be a part of the party. She sounds very much like Hochul, who's always just a little bit late on things. But she wants to be a part of this party, this redistricting party, and she says that she's going to redistrict in retaliation for Texas. Okay? So she wanted to join the cool kids, Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, Kathy Hochul, in protesting Governor Abbott's decision. So they asked her, would you consider redistricting in Massachusetts? She lamented the sad state of affairs, claiming Democrat-run states like Massachusetts must retaliate with their own redistricting to give the Democrats more House representation because Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton have left us no choice. I can tell you that governors I know, maybe with the exception of this person in Texas, evidently we want our constituents represented. We want the voices heard. Whether you vote for me or not, I want your votes to count. She accused Texas Republicans of proposing to completely rewrite a map out of nowhere to take away the votes and the voices of Texans. Now, she did not elaborate on the apparent contradiction between her claims that Democrat governors want their constituents' representation with her support of mid-decade redistricting, which she implies takes away the voice and votes of constituents. But why this is worth mentioning, a look at the two states' congressional representation casts further doubt on Healey's reasoning and projected altruism. Texas currently sends 25 Republicans and 12 Democrats to the House of Representatives, with a 13th district previously represented by a Democrat vacant after a death. Massachusetts has 9 Democrat House members and no Republicans. Yes, you heard me right. She's going to fight fire with fire, to use Kathy Hochul's term, and she is going to really show Texas by gerrymandering her state, which currently sends no Republicans to Congress. Do you see how much of a clown show this has become? How much of a circus this has become? So Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey has threatened to redistrict the state of Massachusetts to push back against Texas, despite no Republicans representing that gerrymandered state. So again, keep that in mind. This is all bluster. It's all a circus. Representative James Clyburn responded to Republicans invoking the congressional maps in Illinois because a lot of Republicans have been pointing out, look at the gerrymandered Illinois maps. It's ironic that these Texas Democrats went to Illinois because they're the home of gerrymandering. He said that if Texas adopts its proposed maps, California is going to follow suit, New York, Illinois, and I guarantee you that we are going to fight fire with fire. Oh, I'm getting so sick of saying that. Well, the big issue, let me take a step back. Victor Blackwell said, let me ask you this, because this is not something that is exclusive to Republicans, as you know. And Republicans invoke the decisions made in Illinois as part of their defense. So is the issue for you or the other Democrats the timing that this is not happening on the typical every decade cycle, or that it is partisan? What's the big issue here? Kleinberg said, well, the big issue is how you do redistricting. That's the big issue. If you look back at the legislation that we proposed, the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act and other bills that we proposed on the Democrat side, we've always proposed bipartisan commissions to draw the lines. That's what we've done, and that's where we are. Now, I've never been at all for that simply because I know that we would get to this point where you might have to use politics in order to offset this stuff. And that's what's going on now. If Texas does what they say they're going to do, California's going to follow suit, New York, Illinois, and I guarantee you that we're going to fight fire with fire. That's what we've got to do. So on charges that Illinois already gerrymanders, he said, well, anyway, we're going to fight fire with fire. I got to take a break. But Mike Lawler does have a piece on this saying gerrymandering is driving U.S. politics mad. Congress, step in. Mike Lawler, who said he's not going to run for governor. But he said, despite my state's explicit ban on both partisan and mid-decade redistricting, Hochul has publicly pledged to remove these protections from the state constitution and dismantle New York's independent redistricting commission. As this political arms race takes aim at American democracy from all sides, Congress has a responsibility to respond to the Supreme Court's 2019 call. We must adopt a national ban on partisan gerrymandering and strictly limit the redistricting process to once-a-decade event following the U.S. Census. This solution will strengthen our democracy by ensuring that competitive districts, whose representatives must appeal broadly to their constituents, exist. That will foster cooperation instead of partisanship and division in Congress. Moreover, it will empower voters, restore their ability to hold elected officials accountable through competitive elections. The stakes are high, and the time to act is now. Let's restore competition to our elections. Our democracy deserves nothing less. All right. When we come back, we're going to hear from STICA. But I did want to mention our good friends from the Hornell Sun were kind enough to do a nice piece about yesterday's interview with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. If you missed it, that links to our YouTube page. The Hornell Sun is as simple as typing in the Hornell Sun. They do an amazing job there, and I do want to thank them. I know I mentioned them in the 6 o'clock hour as well, but it's one of my sites that I go to for show prep in the morning because it has such great hyper-local issues. And you say, well, I don't live in Hornell. It doesn't matter. It hits all over the area. So do not miss checking that out. I would say daily. But I thank them for doing that great piece at the Hornell Sun. On our interview, there's the beautiful Hornell Sun logo. So thank you to them for doing that. And if you miss that interview, it's getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so. Because if you didn't tune in the last couple of days, the county, Steuben County, decided to officially file the appeal in that case in that decision that completely vindicated Sheriff Allard. We're going to keep you updated as things unfold in that. Okay, we got to talk to our friends from STICA because I'm running late about India Day coming up on Saturday. After that, we got a Climate Fact Friday with Bob, so don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and it's that time of year. It's time to talk India Day. Welcome back.
Hi, good to be back here.
It's so hard to believe that we're already talking India Day. That means summer's coming to a close.
Right,
a little bit, right? So let's talk about this because this has become such an amazing tradition in Corning, and this is going on 2 decades?
Yes.
Wow.
So I think it was like in the 70s when we had like Indian folks and families who settled in the area, and they kind of gathered to like, socialize and meet. And I think just like celebrating festivals is such a big thing. Even like Independence Day in India is huge because it's like one of our national holidays. And like schools do parades and like there's all this shebang that goes with Independence Day. So I think people started missing that and they just gathered to celebrate that Independence Day year. And then it grew from like 5 families to 10. And then it made sense to like establish that as an association so that we can do more things for the community, like give back to the community that's now our home. So it was like in 1994 when Southern Tier India Cultural Association, that's STICA, was established. And it's a non-profit, so it's not just like cultural organization, but we help with like other events in the community, partner with other non-profits and things like that. And then Market Street being like, the center of Corning.
Of course.
And summer months, you get a lot of foot traffic. We partnered with Gaffer District, and that's how it started like in 2005 or something in the Centerway Square. And I think it's just a nice space where like everybody else can have a sneak peek of like the Indian culture. Our friends know what it is, but for folks who don't know and are like hesitant about, what does the music and dance mean, I think it's just a nice platform right at Centerway Square.
Would you say after 20 years, and you said it started on Market Street in 2000, what do you say, 5?
5, yeah.
Would you say after all those years it's easier to plan? Are you ready for it?
Are we ready for it? Yes. I think after like all of the planning,
you better be by now, right?
Yeah. Like we do want to see it succeed. So I think today we have the stage rehearsal. So we are looking forward to that. I think it's more of like the weather that has not been in our favor, like last 2 years is when I've been part of this. The first year when it rained, I think everybody just came together and we moved to the garage with the help of Gaffer District. So that worked out. And last year it was like, the whole event was planned for the evening and we saw like there were weather forecast and everything and we thought, okay, let's just move it in the morning. And then it rained all morning.
The opposite.
So we'll just go with the flow, these are things you can't control. But we are doing our best to see what we can do. We are hoping that next year we can have some backup options. So we're working with the Corning area. So yeah,
And the Gafford District does a great job.
yeah, they have
I
been
mean,
immensely helpful.
yeah.
Like,
I know they're rooting for you to get good
yes,
weather.
yes. And I think it's like for them, and that's the other thing, we don't want to take this away from this area because it is kind of like one of the events that happens in Market Street.
does, yeah.
So, like, we definitely want to maintain that
It's
partnership.
become a tradition at this point. So, what would you say the goals of India Day is?
The
or
goals of
are?
India Day has basically been trying to bridge the communities together. It's like, the confluence of the local Indian community with the association, and trying to bring this event outside of our little shell, which used to be internal before,
Yeah.
out, which is what the goal was 20 years ago. And I think we've achieved it pretty
Yes.
good. We've had quite a bit of involvement with even non-Indians who are part of the community to participate in our programs in the past, and we're hoping to continue that going. So basically, it's about bridging the community together and bringing everybody on a whole, and of course, showcasing the best that India has to offer in the local community with the diaspora.
Of course. And India Day is tomorrow, and it starts at 3 o'clock. So, tell us some of the events that surround India Day for those that have never attended before.
So we have a very nice lineup for the people who are going to
A busy lineup, too.
Yes.
An aggressive lineup.
So we start our event. We start the actual event at 3 o'clock, which is just registration. People come in, check in, move around. Buy food tickets if they need to. If they haven't done it already in advance, we have a flyer that's online on our website. And just hang out. And at 3:45 we start the formalities. We do flag hoisting. We sing the national anthems of both the nations, which is how we bring people together.
Of course.
And then we kick off our entertainment program that's on the Centerway stage. We have a very nice, sweet, precise, and good representation of our local community talent.
I would say.
That's coming up. We have some classical Indian dancing. We have a little bit of Bollywood mixed with a patriotic theme. And one of the highlights, and I would say one of the most main attractions of our program, is something we're calling a patriotic walk,
Okay.
where we'll be featuring the little kids of our community.
Oh, how nice.
Some of them are actually even coming with their parents, with assistance.
Yeah, they're like
and,
few months old, so
yes,
they're like really
literally,
tiny.
like really
tots.
tiny. So we're grooming. That's not the right word. I would say we are trying to craft the next generation
of course.
of performers
You're always
in our
building 'em up,
community.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're starting early, and we do have other performances as well. We have a lot of people coming forward to sing. So we will be seeing some vocal talents from our community. And another big highlight we have this year, which we've never had before, is Jennifer Sekela, who's our local Gafford District's face painter,
Yes.
is coming to be there to
wonderful.
dazzle us with some designs that she's been working on to tie in with the theme of India Day.
And then, would you say like the culmination of all of this is the dinner?
Yes, I mean the food has always been the crowd pleaser.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely, people come in looking forward to what caterer or vendor that we are bringing over from another place to Corning, and what Indian food will be featured, and we have a nice little menu waiting for everybody to enjoy.
And that's at 5:30.
Yeah. So I mean, we want to make sure like all the participants who have put in so much hard work. These are kids taking time from their summer days, folks who have jobs and then they meet in the evening to rehearse and all of that. So we do want to give them that due respect that you take your time, finish your program.
Of course.
And that's when we would start the dinner, and that's why like 3:30 to 5:30 is when we want to finish and wrap up all the stage events.
Sure.
And then is when the dinner starts and face painting will happen on the side, so the kids can eat sooner and then go and get the face painting done. But yeah, no, very excited about the food. We are partnering with Hyderabadi Biryani House from Rochester.
Okay.
We have partnered with them before as well, and we have a new food check, Mehek. So she has brought in some really good ideas. So yeah.
And I do have to mention, because he's a friend of Frankly Speaking, I see the mayor's making his annual address. He's been doing that
Yes.
for a while.
Yeah, and like it's so sweet, right? Like when somebody from the leadership is part of the
Yeah.
community and attends these events. I think it just like our theme this year is like bridging cultures by strengthening community by bridging cultures, and like having the mayor attend these events just like sets a nice precedence
I agree.
for everybody in the area. We also have other chief guests. We have Colin Coro from Chamber of Commerce president.
Oh, yeah.
We have Dr. Joseph from Guthrie, and we also have Michelle Caulfield from
The superintendent,
CPP.
yeah, the superintendent.
So like we have tried to cover like the core aspects of the community, healthcare, education, local businesses and things like that. So we are hoping people can get inspired by their wisdom and what they do for the larger community, not just the Indian locals here.
Now, I know that you love the whole event from beginning to end, but is there something that you're looking forward to, each of you specifically, the most?
I'll let Nitya go first.
Well, I'm really looking forward to performing on stage. I'm actually
Oh.
part of the program, which has been a really nice thing to do.
Yeah.
Despite being somebody that's been in charge of the program, that's one of the things I really look forward to.
Now, what time
for
do you
me.
go on?
Towards the end of the program,
Okay,
so
okay.
I don't want to give everything away.
Okay.
But yes, that's one of the things I really look forward to is performing and being part of it, so that shows people that you can do both. Like you can organize and be part of the association and also perform.
Yeah.
So that way we encourage more people to step forward to take on these little roles to volunteer for the association. So that's one of the things I look forward to. And I love putting together the program. And with Sneha in the last 2 years, it's been a beautiful collaboration of, somebody that's classically trained in Indian dancing and somebody that's just, like part of the entertainment to come together with a very nice cohesive program
Yeah.
for all of our events.
For
you forgot
me,
you forgot your dancer.
yeah, no, so it's funny, this is my first time not doing any dance.
Oh, yeah.
Like I took a break because like what happens is like in that day I'm like so much in the headspace of I need to remember my steps,
Oh, sure.
change costumes, like I don't get to enjoy the whole event as such, which I am working towards to put together. So I thought I'll give myself a break this time and just focus on like making this event a success. And I think I'm just looking forward to see that culmination of all the work that's been put in by everybody, like
Right.
all the volunteers. There are folks who have been part of, like we have an extended board, and the way it governs is like Nitya is the entertainment chair, there's a food chair, there's membership.
Okay.
So everybody has their own roles and responsibilities, but they all come together to make this event. And like I was talking to you offline, like this is not something that happens indoors. If something gets messed up, it's just hush hush. It's out there, and
Sure.
like people who are not even from conning, for them it's an impression like, oh, look at the conning community. They
Right.
do all these things. So we have to be like, make sure that everything we plan goes well. So I want a vacation after this is all done.
I'm sure.
So I'm very excited that I would be able to spend time interacting with all the community members who come. And yeah, I'm very excited. for
Would you
that.
say that the planning goes on throughout the whole year then?
So we have 3 main events throughout the year.
Okay.
And then after each event, we just start with the next one.
Okay.
But this one being at a larger scale, we meet every week. And there's a lot of like offline planning and everything. We also revamped our website. So there's somebody called Lavanya who's an illustrator within the community.
Looks great.
So we onboarded her and like we revamped the whole website and we wanted to launch it before India Day. So things like that, which takes away time, but also like we all care about the community, not just the Indians, but like entire
Of course.
conning area. So I think we all are very excited to it doesn't matter what time it takes away. It's about like bringing people together.
And I know you can't do anything like this when you have a big event like this without sponsors, right?
Yes, and we have been grateful. Like Conning Inc. has always been a huge supporter with like tickets and stuff. We also have Allsworth and Socha who have been our platinum sponsors. We have Metadine, and then we have new sponsors like Stewart Agency, their insurance company. So yeah, like it's a nice way to reach out to all the local businesses, and they have been very supportive in many ways, not just financially, but like offering their space for people to go change, or like sponsoring ice creams for kids and things like that. So yeah.
Now, and we're talking India Day, which takes place tomorrow starting at 3 p.m. You can find out more at the website on the bottom of the screen. Would you recommend that people, is it too late on Friday to get tickets ahead of time, or should they wait for the day of?
Online, they can come walk in.
I think we have walk-in options.
Walk-in, okay.
Yes, for the tickets. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just more of like helping the food team get a good head count.
Sure.
So we kind of try to close the ticket sale a day before so we can tell the vendor.
Yeah.
We are just like eyeing it at the moment to see if we still want to open online ticket sales on Friday, but walk-in is always
That was
welcome.
always one, yeah.
Yeah.
And before we go, where can people find out more, not just about India Day, but also about STICA?
I think
Just
our
go to the
website is probably one of the best options. For the last couple of years, we do have like a Facebook page, which we are
Okay.
trying to post more on. We also have an Instagram page that we post on
Yeah.
regularly throughout the year, where we talk about all the community festivals, 4th of July, Thanksgiving. We just keep it active so that everyone knows that there is some kind of engagement. And then we also have a YouTube channel where we have our videos and
You got everything.
things featured. So
Yeah.
we're definitely out
It's
there.
it's not a professional one, like
Yeah.
we don't have a social media marketing manager, but we all try to chime in and just share things and
Sure.
keep it. I mean, it's 2025. Like the first thing somebody looks up is, do you have a Instagram account,
Yeah,
right?
right,
So
right.
we're just trying to keep up with everybody.
We all are trying to keep up with everybody, I think. So it's coming up tomorrow, starting at 3 p.m. Find out more at the website on the bottom of the screen. Thanks so much for being on the program, as always. I hope we'll talk to you next year. And I'm not even going to say anything about the weather. I'm just
Yes.
going to say best of luck.
Yeah, thank you for having us
course.
as usual.
Thank you. It was
Okay.
a pleasure.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go to viewer comments because we have a Climate Fact Friday with Bob. But right before that, I do want to thank our friends from STICA. Don't miss out on India Day, a tradition here in the Gafford District. The Southern Tier India Cultural Association holding India Day tomorrow starting at 3 p.m. So we appreciate that. Also, I know I've been doing a lot of promos this morning, but now that I have you hooked, there's quite a few major stories. Number one, I hope that you'll check out our article at the Hornell Sun, as they were kind enough to do a piece on us here at Frankly Speaking, and the sheriff and our interview yesterday that's gotten a lot of views. If you have not seen it, it is up on YouTube now, and you can click it right there in that article at the Hornell Sun. I would appreciate it because we really want to spread the word. We were the ones that broke the story, and as of yesterday, I have not seen anyone else mention it. So I do appreciate the Hornell Sun doing a write-up on it, and I appreciate the sheriff coming on to tell us that the county has officially decided to appeal the decision by the New York State Supreme Court that found incomplete, well, how do I want to word it? Vindication for the sheriff. Also, I want to remind you, speaking of Hornell, our friends at WLEA, if you are around Saturday or Sunday at 1 o'clock, please tune in because I'm going to be on The Pulse with the sheriff. Listen, I just said the sheriff. With the mayor, John Buckley. Oops. I hope he's not watching. I didn't give him an upgrade. Thank you, the Hornell mayor. I got distracted out there. John Buckley, who invited me on The Pulse, which is on 1 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday on WLEA, and you can listen to it at any time. It is online at WLEA and at WYSL. Okay. I think there we go. One last one. Meet NASCAR driver Ross Chastain at the Corning Moose this Saturday. Now let's go. Before we take a break, let's go to Climate Fact Friday with Bob. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Climate Fact Friday, Bob. Here with some more climate facts. The planet is warming. Oh no, everyone run and hide. Of course the planet is warming. It has been warming for over 10,000 years. What do you think melted all that ice from the last glacial ice age? Throughout this interglacial period, the temperatures have had wild swings from the medieval warm period from 950 AD to 1250 AD. In some regions like Northern Europe, they were growing grapes as far up as the Rhine Valley in Germany, and the Vikings were farming in Greenland. This was all caused from natural forces. Then came the Little Ice Age, when temps dropped from the 14th to the 19th century. Remember last winter when people were making snow angels in Panama Beach, Florida? The experts at NOAA, I don't know if they call it that, predicted a wet and mild winter for the eastern U.S. Oops, they were wrong again. I guess their AI lied. Sure, there's higher CO2 levels, making for a modest warming of the globe. The higher CO2 lets plants grow much easier and with less stress. The USDA shows that agricultural staple crops like corn, oats, and rice have seen record yields since 2015. The world has seen the largest decline in hunger and malnutrition in modern history, a fact that you won't see in the lamestream media, only here on Frankly Speaking. Everyone have a great and safe weekend. Thank you, and thank you, Climate Fact Friday, Bob. We always appreciate it. One of the highlights of our Friday broadcast. I do really appreciate it. So there you are. There is your Climate Fact Friday. We do have to take a short break. We're going to wrap things up on today's edition. We've got a lot left to cover, so we're going to rush through. Get your comments in, and we'll be right back after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Securities and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We got a lot to get to. Let's go to viewer comments. Mark writes in, I think that it all boils down to is the Democrats lost the 2024 election big time. And they are clueless on how to get back, and they are trying anything to get back in the running. I couldn't agree more. And how about this for a comment from a different viewer? Frank, thank you for another entertaining show. Your viewers' brilliant comments are definitely adding to the show's greatness. Well, thank you, and I couldn't agree more. It is about the viewers first and foremost, in my opinion, who write in all viewers, but the comments have been spectacular. Oh, as an update, you remember when I said I think things were getting really bad for Biden when he didn't accept the Super Bowl interview invite? Well, one trusted Biden aide testified yesterday that it was the reason he didn't take the interview, in part, was due to the release of the bombshell report from former special counsel Robert Hur, about his handling of classified information. She told the committee President Biden's team decided against doing a Super Bowl interview last year because they thought the main coverage would be about what he did with classified records and not about the president's policy decisions. That seems like a weak excuse. She testified they decided this before the Hur report had come out. Yeah, that seems like a weak excuse. Pundit James Carville, the Raging Cajun, has apologized and pulled a video that suggests that Melania Trump has an Epstein connection. Who should not have done that, considering his boss, his old boss, definitely had an Epstein connection. James Carville also urges Democrats to unilaterally pack the Supreme Court, make Puerto Rico and D.C. the new blue states to, quote, save democracy. The Democrats talk about democracy, the importance of democracy, and preserving democracy and saving democracy. Well, the truth of the matter is people are right when they say that democracy is really imperfect. And then he suggested the ways to listed several perceived imbalances and saying they should unilaterally pack the Supreme Court and make Puerto Rico and D.C. new blue states. He also claims that Democrats are ditching anyone, I find this hard to believe, from the failed 2024 Harris campaign as the party looks ahead to 2028. How about this? I don't take this as fact, but the Daily Mail is reporting that Steve Bannon is secretly plotting a sensational run for president in 2028, and he's already knifing his likely rival, J.D. Vance, saying, I created him. He doesn't have it. He responded and said it's just not the case. Oh, and Bill and Hillary Clinton could face jail time if they refuse to testify in the Trump administration's Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Finally, if you have a chance and you have any free time, Tom Cotton has a great piece at the New York Post called Mara Lawfare. 3 years later, and the left's war on Trump still shocks. It's a good refresher of what we went through in those 3 years, if you have a chance. But like he said, they don't really care about law and they don't really care about justice. They only care about power, regaining power and retaining it, meaning the Democrats. I'll respond to you in a second. Okay, we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Again, check out the interview from yesterday with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard and his shocked opinion, his shocked reaction to the county officially filing that appeal in the New York State Supreme Court decision that found him completely vindicated. Also, please listen to WLEA this Saturday and Sunday at 1 o'clock as I will be on the Pulse with Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Can't wait to do that. And India Day is tomorrow. And again, that's right in Corning, Centerway. Check out the Corning Moose Lodge as they're going to have Ross Chastain tomorrow from 6:30 to 7:30. You'll be able to purchase food as well, but get an autograph. And if you get a picture, please send it in, and I'll post it right here on the show live during Monday's broadcast. So send those great pictures in. Have a fun, safe weekend. Enjoy the races if you're off to the races. And we'll be back Monday morning at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking, only on Big Fox. I look forward to it already.